Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast, where we talk about why today's headlines are important for your success at work. My name is Peter Rahbar, and I'm your first call on legal issues.
Laura Brounstein, your first call for comms issues. How are you, Peter?
Good. Are you okay? I heard you got stuck on the escalator at the UN yesterday. Is that true?
So, just a little side note, I do have escalator anxiety. Like when I am getting on an escalator, it takes me a minute to make sure I will be safe
Right.
embarking on it.
Is that both directions or just going down? Or
Just going down, really, because
I
it
think
seems
that's
that people
rational.
fall. But wow, he was really put out by having to walk a flight of stairs, huh? I did like that
What
Melania
a
was just like, okay, we're walking.
Yeah. I mean, one of my if you've spent time with me socially, one of my rants is about how he actually can't walk that far and never does. Like he's always
Totally.
driven places, even when he golfs, it's always in a cart. So I'm sure it was kind of a challenge, but whatever. He made it.
I mean, have we seen pictures of what he looked like after he made it to the top?
Yeah, the sweat probably wasn't a good thing, but whatever.
Yeah.
His problem.
Well, it is UNGA Week and Climate Week in New York City, which means that's UN General Assembly and Climate Week, which means the city is packed with leaders, consultants, and, lots of people trying to do good in the world. So it's an interesting
Global
week.
elites. Global
Global
elites.
elites, hella global elites. Plus, what's his name? What's his name? That's now the UN. Waltz is
Uh,
now at the UN, our ambassador
yeah,
to the UN.
sure.
Wow, we went from
Sure.
Nikki Haley, who we might not agree on everything politically, but smart lady, to Mike Waltz.
Yeah. It's a good week if you live in New York. It's either a good week to stay at home and not go anywhere or go to a lot of parties. So
I'm doing
there you go.
the latter.
Sounds like you're doing the party route.
I'm doing the party route. All right,
So
but we have a
so what are
lot
we
to
talking
talk
about?
about.
Yeah.
Last night, I left the event I was at 11:10 because I wanted to get home in time for Kimmel. So we're going to talk about Kimmel. We're going to talk about all the machinations related to the FCC. What is all you're going to explain all of that, I hope. And then my favorite news moment, that return to office is not working. Hybrid is where it's at, as Peter and I have said many times, but we're going to talk all about that. And then we're going to talk about the shit show that is H-1B visas right now and how President Trump had every tech leader to dinner and then introduced a law that would cost them hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions. I don't know. We'll get into it.
Millions. Yeah.
Okay. Across the bar.
Yeah, great. So Jimmy Kimmel's back, thank
Jimmy,
goodness.
did you watch last night?
Of course. I love Jimmy Kimmel. I mean,
I
on
love
top
him.
of being very funny and entertaining, he seems to be
He's a
genuinely
good
like
dude.
a good person. Yeah,
He
a
made
good
it a
person.
practice to, when they would put out calls for actors for skits, they would give preference to people who needed one last gig to make union status for the year because he wanted to make sure people had health care in his community. He's a good dude.
Right. He's a good example of someone who could do more with his power and his position and often does it. In fact, if you made it through the monologue last night, Glenn Powell talked about when he was a struggling actor, they would open up their
Yeah.
green room to him to feed him because he literally couldn't afford to buy food. So that was pretty cool, I thought. So look, it's kind of funny. We taped right before Jimmy Kimmel was suspended, and then here we are today, right after he got back.
So what did you expect this? Did you expect him to come back? Do we think that this is a maybe less and less rare case of public pushback actually changing the course of things?
Well, I did expect him to come back personally. I
Yeah.
mean, so taking, a few steps back, if you look at what he actually said in his Monday night monologue last week, I mean, he didn't say anything really controversial at all. And it was part of a lead up, and it was true what he said. And it was part of a lead up to a joke that was actually very funny. That wasn't about Charlie Kirk. It was about the president saying, when he was asked about Charlie Kirk, saying that, look over there, there's bulldozers building a ballroom that some people have wanted for 150 years. I don't know. So I thought what he
Listen,
said was,
anyone can have their own opinion about whether his comments were in good taste, but the Constitution does protect his right to say them.
yeah, sure. He's a comedian. He has He's giving opinions. He's making a joke. He's entertaining. But he then went on. So if you take a look at how these shows work, that was not a live monologue. That was a monologue taped earlier in the day that was reviewed
Point.
by presumably ABC's attorneys
Good point.
and
That's a
given the
great point. I
sensitivity.
had not thought of, Peter.
Yeah, so they looked at it.
It
They
wasn't
they
live. Like, people had plenty of time. There's culpability on the part of Disney if their corporate lawyers had reviewed it.
Well, there is or there isn't, because they probably heard it, and like me and others, they thought, okay, well, whatever. It's
Shrug.
not there's nothing false about it, and there's nothing controversial about it. It went on. He then went back on air Tuesday, gave a whole additional monologue that actually had a very brief Charlie Kirk mention, and then a lot of bashing of the president, which was actually hilarious. And then on Wednesday, the chairman of the FCC made comments to a podcaster, Benny Johnson, about how affiliates need to put pressure on these networks to control people like Jimmy Kimmel. And we could do this the easy way, or we could do it the hard way. And the FCC could have more work if we're going to do it the hard way. And it was only after that comment that the
Mhm.
suspension happened. Now, what happened between that comment
So can you
and the
explain to
suspension?
people what was going on behind the scenes? Why Disney needed to be in the good graces of the FCC, and the roles that Nexstar and Sinclair played for very different reasons.
So, at a very basic level, when you are watching ABC, CBS, NBC at home or wherever you watch TV, you're watching a station that's owned by sometimes the network, although in very few cases. Here
Those
in
are
New
called
York,
O&Os, owned and operated.
yes, O&Os. And so in New York, all the stations are O&Os. But if you're in other markets throughout the US, they're likely owned
Usually
by
ABC, usually New York, like the big ones, like LA. I think
New York,
all the
LA,
K's are, yeah.
New York, LA, Houston, Miami, big markets owned by the networks. In other markets, they are owned by other companies, and they are called affiliates, and they sign agreements with the networks to carry the programming. Both sides have commitments that they're making to each other about running the programming and whatnot. But also importantly, every
And
station
you know this
in
for many reasons, but also because Hearst owned TV stations.
yes, and I worked with those TV stations throughout the country, and each station has an FCC license because they are broadcast over the air.
Public airwaves.
Yeah, the public air spectrum, and they are licensed by the
A
FCC, and there
system
are
that is maintained
rules.
by our tax dollars, correct?
That's right. That's right. And so it's for TV stations, for radio stations, not Sirius XM because that's over satellite. That's not over airwaves. So the FCC has a role, and there are two groups, two companies that own a lot of these TV stations. One is called Nexstar, which is based in Texas, just outside of Dallas. Another is called Sinclair, based in Baltimore. Both very conservative in their views, both very forward about having local news broadcasts that are not always viewed
Nexstar
as
as much as
objective.
Sinclair?
Sinclair is known as the most conservative, but Nexstar is also very conservative, yes. And so Nexstar is buying another bunch of stations, I
Because
think.
not I just wanna be fair and say, since I go on News Nation, they really do try to not be conservative, to be
News
center.
Nation?
They try, yeah.
Well, I've watched your appearances, including the one last week on this topic, and I can't say I agree with your statement.
His opinions that night were strong, yes, but just in
Yes,
general.
very strong. So Nexstar, is looking at has a proposed merger with another station group called Tegna, and that's going to require FCC approval. And that's going to give them up to 20% of, I believe, the ABC affiliates,
You know
which gives
that
them a lot of
that's
power.
Gannett spelled backwards. Did you know that?
I didn't know
It's
that,
like the
but
spinoff of Gannett, basically.
yeah.
Oh,
So that merger is going to need FCC approval. And so when the chair of the FCC is saying the affiliates need to take action, you could be sure that there were calls. I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure there were between Nexstar and ABC about you need to do something with Jimmy Kimmel for what he said about Charlie Kirk. And, you know, lo and behold, a few hours later, there was a suspension.
and
Networks,
all the Republicans came out and said this was a corporate decision. All of them,
right,
which
right.
was belied by what last night?
Well, first of all, Disney never said it was a corporate decision. So you got to take that, right? And I will say there's a lot of factors that go into these decisions. Networks and affiliates fight all the time. They have disputes all the time about, content and types of content and whether things are, too racy for middle America, let's say, for instance. And I'm sure this was not the first time that Nexstar Sinclair had complaints about Jimmy Kimmel, who's pretty left leaning in his commentary. But
Yeah.
look, ultimately, the problem here, what everybody was up in arms about, was that this was a decision that was sort of forced by government threats
Yeah.
of involvement with these companies. And free speech is the ability to say something without having the government come after you. Okay.
Yeah.
And here the government is threatening to come after these companies and force them into action. That's what everybody was afraid of, was, are we going to end up in a situation in this country where the government is going to dictate who can talk, what they can say, where they can say it, what opinions are allowed, what opinions are not allowed? That is not what America is about. And
I am
thankfully,
really struck by, you have talked so many times about there is a resistance movement building that's different than what we think it is, that there is energy behind people pushing back against power right now. And I think this is such a perfect example of, like, look at all these people that use their voice, use their pocketbook, and it got heard.
right. I'm sure they heard a ton of feedback. ABC or Disney did. And
Hmm.
most notably, Michael Eisner, former CEO of Disney, said, if you're not going to fight back, who's going to fight back? Where's the leadership? And in the industry, that apparently was viewed as a comment that
Willow
had a lot
Bay,
of
Bob
impact.
Iger's wife, who is a wonderful, wonderful person and one of my very first bosses, runs a journalism school.
Right. She runs a journalism school at USC. Like, this could
Yeah, like,
not
that's
be
rock. Yeah,
more contrary to that. Now,
but he
so
came through.
so
Took 1 minute, but he came through.
so he came back. And look, there's also a backdrop here of, entertainers and on-air personalities have morals clauses in their contracts. These networks have rights to suspend them, to terminate them if they say things that are offensive or offend
We're
people.
talking about a ton of money. Like, but the other thing that was insane was how much ABC network, how much Disney programming is reliant on Jimmy Kimmel. Like, he hosts other shows. Also, I wonder which of his famous friends behind the scenes were kind of saying, like, was Robert Downey Jr., who, was part of that whole friend group, saying,
You talking about the
not
Marvel,
into,
bro?
yeah, not so into Marvel now, guys. Like, how much pushback did key players in their franchises also give? I
Well,
bet
there
that
was
matters.
apparently a lot. I mean, Damon Lindelof from Lost said he's not going to work with Disney. There was an actor's petition that
The
circulated that had,
Lindelofs are two of the best humans in the world. They put their energy and money and voices around what matters every time. Just
right.
side
And
note.
there was a huge petition with really prominent actors who signed up against it. All the late night show comedians, a bunch of conservative podcasters. Joe Rogan yesterday came out pretty strong against it. Ted
I mean, Tucker
Cruz came out against
Carlson,
it.
Ted Cruz.
Tucker Carlson, right? Yeah. So look, I'm glad he's back. It's the right decision to bring him back. Nexstar and Sinclair still refusing to air the show. I think that'll probably go away in a week or so. They'll
I
get
was just
their
talking to
deal.
somebody about that when they get good ratings for the next few days, next Sinclair is going to be like, yeah, we're good. He can come back on.
Well, guess what? When there's a change in administration, and I'm not saying it's even to a Democratic
If there
administration,
is a
maybe.
change.
Okay. Well, when there is a change to either a Democratic administration or a more traditional Republican one, I'm sure that these companies just bought themselves an antitrust investigation, because part of the reason why you don't want to have companies owning so many stations is for situations like
Oh, that's
this.
interesting.
And
That's
they're going to
really
argue,
interesting. No, but I
they're going to,
haven't heard that anywhere.
yeah, because across the bar, we break these kind of theories. We
So
put
would
them out
Disney
there.
have a suit against Sinclair for this? Or does it always have to be from the government antitrust? Is that always brought by the
Well,
government?
that is government. That's a government or a consumer. but, in theory, a
Okay.
consumer could allege that now, but it would be an FTC thing, and in a more reasonable administration, that might be, an action we might see in the future. That's down the line.
All right, let's talk about something more cheerful than the creaky state of our democracy. Although it was heartening to see its resilience, I would say,
Yes.
in this
Yes.
case. Okay, so all of that blah blah, return to office. I love it. It doesn't seem to be working. Talk about this. Again, I believe in hybrid. I think being in the office 2 to 3 days a week is great for connectivity, morale, creativity, building the next generation. But I don't think 5 days a week helps anybody.
Yeah, I think we're both fans of hybrid, and we're both fans of employers being flexible. And there was an article, yesterday saying that return to office initiatives are just not working, and that employers are making these rules and these grand pronouncements and threats. And then when it comes to execution, they're not acting on it because employees are just saying like,
Almost like a taco situation.
sorry, we don't need to do that. And by the way, I'm your highest performer. Are you really going to fire me in this labor market? And the answer is usually no. We'll find a way to work with you. So there was that article that came out this week. There was a Gallup poll last week that said, despite all the stories,
It's on the rise, right?
hybrids on the rise, and 51% of jobs are hybrid. 60% of employees want hybrid. And by the way, having hybrid work arrangements is a huge boost to work life, mental health of your employees.
It also allows for more women in the workplace.
Right. I mean, I think one thing, yes, it could allow for greater representation, but just at a very basic level, employees have become used to a certain way of working. They've structured their life in a certain way around their schedules. And then for an employer just on a dime to say it's totally changing, that's not going to work. And employees are going to push back.
Also, can be expensive to go to the office every day. Like
Sure.
time and money is, I gotta say, like money is so tight for so many people now, given how much groceries cost and rising costs of rent, et cetera, housing shortages. It's just when you go to the office, you're paying for transportation, you're paying for pet or child care, you're eating out maybe. Like it's costs money.
Right. I mean,
People
and
don't talk about that.
that's one of the ways employers are trying to get people to come back is,
I feel
free
like they're not
food or
doing that
subsidized
anymore.
food.
I feel like there was a lot of literal free lunches in 2021, and now people are just like, taking Jamie Dimon's book
Well,
and
Jamie Dimon
saying,
has like 19 cafeterias in his new building. I heard someone describe it as like an airport terminal. That was
"Really?"
the description I heard, which could be good or bad, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's also a good reminder, the the business news cycle is really controlled by corporate PR people, and that's why podcasts like ours are important because we provide the real perspective of like what's actually happening. And so we've read these articles for a month about how and longer about how return to office is the way
We
and
are
blah blah
so
blah.
important.
And we push back on that, and here we go. So now
Yeah,
we're finally being
here we go.
supported.
Okay,
Yeah. Good moment
I
for
love
us.
that, and, there's some good data out there right now if you wanna make a case in your office for this. There's data to back you up, I think is one
Right.
just reason to think about.
And I will just give my advice to employers again, which you could choose to listen to or not listen to, which is you make these decisions based on the needs of your company and your employees, and you should incorporate them in the process, and you
Short
should
term and long term.
short term and long term and figure out what the best policy is for you. Forget about what JP Morgan's doing, forget about what Amazon, definitely forget about what Amazon's doing. Just think about what's right for
Yeah,
your company.
well said.
And if you have a good process and good communications around it, you could make anything work.
Well, that brings us to our next topic because many of these companies, the biggest ones, Amazon, all of them, that felt the best thing for them sometimes is someone from another country who has a specific skill set, often around technical things. And, President Trump had all the tech leaders come sit to fly at a moment's notice to have dinner with them and him. And, they all said, "Dear leader, this is wonderful." And then he introduces this rule that screws every single one of them. Tell the people about the H-1B visa and what what the president is now trying to do.
Well, this decision, I mean, talk about
It's insane.
decision-making process and communications. Seems
It's
like there
so anti-business. I don't get it. Sorry.
really wasn't much of a process here. This was an idea. Let's take a step back. The thing we're talking about here is the H-1B visa, which is a category of visas that is supposed to be used for highly skilled workers.
I believe it's the Visa Melania.
Yes. And in fact, I had an interesting discussion with someone about that yesterday, but we'll put that to the side for a second.
Okay, but let's
The
come back to
H Definitely not in this environment. Maybe in a private cocktail setting. The H-1B visa, there's a lottery process. There's a lot of demand for it. It's supposed to be capped at 85,000 visas a year. Often there are up to 400,000 granted in reality. And there are claims of abuse of the process and overuse of the process and all that. Now, let's remember the American workforce is comprised of 170 million people.
wow.
So we're talking about less than 1% of the workforce. And we're talking about a category of workers where the median salary is around $120,000. Okay. So when the government out of nowhere announced, well, it's not out of nowhere, it's out of Project 2025. This was
Yeah,
in Project 2025, very clearly
it was.
articulated
That
that this,
thing that they kept saying had nothing to do with what the Trump administration was going to do.
right. So the theory, the working theory is that employers were using these visas on foreign workers so they didn't have to hire American workers and so that they wouldn't have to pay American workers more money. And this was a way to save money. So this program should either be eliminated or highly restricted or redesigned.
Who's saying that?
The Project 2025 people. That
I just want
was
to make clear we're not saying that.
We're not saying that. No. And so I read this morning because every day we're getting new details about how this decision, which like seemingly just came out of the blue, as you said, the tech leaders
Say it.
were,
What was the decision?
well, the decision was that there was now going to be a $100,000 fee attached to applying for this visa or renewing it. Now, initially, when it was announced,
$100,000.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said this
Is
was
it
an annual
retroactive?
fee. Well, he said it was for new people applying and everyone renewing, and they would have to pay this fee every year. The executive order signed did not say that, but it did not specifically say how often it had to be paid. People freaked out. Companies freaked out. This was Friday night, Saturday.
Uh-huh.
Paying $100,000 a year effectively ends this program. And no one's going to do that, especially for workers who are getting paid $100,000 a year. Then there was a quick backtrack from the press secretary and others. No, this is a one-time fee. Now, even at that level, the hardest impact will be
How
on
much did
smaller
it cost
companies.
before?
Couple $100.
Okay.
Couple
I think
hundred
that's an
dollars.
important note.
And so the hardest impact
This
will
was
be
not an
felt.
incremental shift upwards. This was,
No, this is
yeah,
a radical killing the
radical.
program. And so look, you talk to people who use these visas and companies, and I've represented employees on these visas. This is not a program to replace American workers. This is a program because we literally don't have enough workers in this country to do everything we want to do. And this was a way to bring the best and brightest from throughout the world here to the US.
Why
Now we're
wouldn't we
saying,
want that?
I don't know. Now
Easy.
we're saying we don't want you here.
Yeah.
And so,
This is
the
not, do they not understand? I really don't understand why they're doing this.
well, you could say they're making it a decision based on other principles that have nothing to do with the actual numbers.
It's
You
so
know,
not business friendly.
yeah. It's not business friendly. It could kill innovation. I mean, startups rely on this. There's no way a startup's going to be able to pay $100,000. They're not going to be able to compete for American talent, frankly.
This is consolidated. This is again going to consolidate more money with a smaller group of people. This is going to add to income inequality, I feel.
Right. And if another detail that came out over the weekend was that the administration retains the right to grant exceptions in the quote national interest. So whatever that means, it probably means if you join the president for a state dinner or contribute to his crypto coin or whatever it means. But
Wow.
startups are not going to have that access either, frankly. So the The net effect, in my opinion, is that we're going to see a lot of jobs shifted to other countries. We're going to see startups hiring remote teams of engineers in Romania or Turkey or wherever they are, and they're excellent engineers, all over the world.
Yeah.
And this is just another sign of America's hostility to sudden new hostility to foreign workers, and it's a real
Well, the
shame.
hostility towards smart things in general.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, there was another article today. One of the workers from the Korean factory that was raided by ICE said, "My takeaway is it's not safe to work in America." And guess what? That quote's going to ring around the world. And
I have
so
had a couple conversations this week with people coming from other countries for UNGA, and several people said they had to think for a second, do I really want to go to the US right now? Am I worried about what's on my phone? Do I need to get a burner phone? Like, what the hell?
I had that same conversation with someone last night. I've also had conversations with clients who said I couldn't start my company if I didn't have H-1B visas available to me because I couldn't compete for the talent. So it was a really short-sighted
We got it.
decision.
Zeros and heroes. That's a mess. I think it's a mess. Let's talk about the fun things. What's your zero?
Well, my zero sort of goes back to what we talked about earlier. I'm sorry, but Nexstar, Tegna, please, enough. Brendan Carr, you're not serving the national interest. You're serving a very partisan interest. Everyone could see that. So please just stop.
So my biggest fear right now in general, as I think I've mentioned, there's so many, but this push towards traditional femininity.
Boy.
And the thing that came out from the White House yesterday or the day before, this week, that linked Tylenol use by pregnant women to autism. Oh my God, there is no science behind this. And it is so much more dangerous for women to be in pain or have a fever while pregnant than to take Tylenol. And I feel like this is another way that it is just another thing making it harder for women to fully participate in society because they're being told they should not access painkillers. Just you wait till some state, till Idaho introduces a law making it a prosecutable crime for a pregnant woman to have Tylenol. Watch for it. Also, are they suing them, the makers of Tylenol? They gotta
Yeah.
be.
I mean, it's a nightmare. It's the first thing I thought about was, wow, look at all the lawsuits they're going to get now. If you want me to give a less serious zero, I could say the New York football teams. The Jets and Giants are 0-6 combined. They suck.
I
And
think I've
so
heard my boyfriend mumbling
that's
about
pretty
that.
sad.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad. All right, who's your hero?
I'm gonna go with a really straightforward hero. There is nothing like a good burger. And last night at Zero Bond in New York City, which yes, gets a lot of, attention for being someplace Eric Adams and other people go. But the best burger in the city right now, I think.
I'm going to have to
I think
lodge
we're
a
gonna have to,
strong
I think it's
objection
the
to this.
best burger in the city.
Yeah.
There's nothing like last night I had like a catch up with two really, really good friends. We sat on a roof, drank martinis, ate this
Sounds like
burger.
maybe the
Phenomenal.
setting contributed to your feelings about the
It was
burger, which is
really good.
fine.
Yeah. I don't know.
I will say that our bar Sip and Guzzle has two burgers. One which was just named the best burger
Now,
in
where
a
is this
list that
again?
came out. Sip and Guzzle in the West Village, 29 Cornelia Street.
I feel that you should initiate, like, we should go there.
We should.
We should record
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So
Didn't we talk?
we did. We did.
Uh,
I'd be
let's
happy
do-
to. We have two burgers there that are incredible. So,
What's the difference between them?
well, one is like a tavern burger upstairs. That's like what you would probably more traditionally associate.
And then a smash burger?
Like, no, and then we have a Wagyu burger downstairs. It was just reviewed in Feed Me, Emily Sundberg's newsletter last week, and they liked it. But it's expensive. It's
Nice.
$150, but it is amazing. It melts in your mouth.
All right, let's do it.
No.
All
All
right.
right.
Wait, is that your hero? That sandwich?
No. No.
Okay.
No.
What's your
My
hero?
hero is related though. My hero is that it is Negroni week this week, International Negroni Week. So,
Gin is the devil.
well, you can have it with mezcal.
Mhm.
So
I
that
like
is
a
my favorite.
Boulevardier.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's great with bourbon. Yeah. Good
Mhm.
winter drink.
Yeah.
The Negroni is my favorite cocktail. This week is Negroni week. So go to your local bar that's celebrating Negroni week, order one, proceeds go to charities across the world. It's a good time to have a cocktail,
Love it.
have
All right.
fun. Yeah.
Thank you, producer Sadie Rahbar.
Yeah. Thanks.
And born later.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching, listening to Across the Bar podcast, and we'll see you next week.